Hi, I am Vina Keller from ReDefine Parenting. I want to welcome you to the Spanglish World Network and her network on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku Sticks, also on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. I am so excited to have these guests today because I actually was a guest on their podcast called These Two Moms. And what was so fascinating was, as a parent coach, I've always talked about there's not just one way to parent a child. We talk about conscious parenting, mindful parenting, helicopter parenting. Like there's so many different labels of parenting out there. And I'm a firm believer in parent your children the way that they need to be parented. And so when I came across these two moms and I was listening to like the soul scripts and listening to the different, I would say, characteristics, personalities. I don't know, girls. I don't know what you guys call them, but what we are, what our kids are. I was like, holy cow, like this totally aligns with what I've been coaching parents on understanding is that all of our children are different and we are different. And it was interesting because when I took the test, which is on my Facebook, guys. So if you haven't done it, please run to my Facebook, Vinu Keller on Facebook. Take the test. It's just a 2-minute test and really figure out who you are because you're going to want to know this when these women start talking. So I would like to introduce Marie and Brittany from These Two Mom podcast, who are the creators of this soul script and really give a real and raw definition about what it is. So Marie and Brittany, thank you so much for being on ReDefine Parenting today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
It's hard for Brittany and I. We're usually right next to each other. So now it's like, wait, you're so far away.
I have to talk to you on a screen. It's weird.
It is weird.
But yeah, the soul scripts, my biggest problem with most personality typing situations is that I feel like they would really nail a piece of me, but I was never like fully represented in the like paragraphs after. So that's what I really like about what we developed is that it includes all of the parts of you and it accepts that you have strengths and weaknesses in each area, but that you're everything.
Yes. Yes. So what gave you guys the idea to like really create this and say, you know what, there's more to this? Like, I mean, because you would say, would you agree that it kind of aligns with what I'm saying is that like every kid is different, we're different, and we need to treat our children as such, right? Like as the different individuals they are. And I feel like the soul script actually kind of described that. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. I think the most trouble you have in parenting is when you try to decide who your child is and parent from that instead of letting the child tell you who they are and then parent from that. And so when you try to have a blanket approach to parenting, you're going to feel like you're running uphill at all times against the wind because just saying, hey, I think this is what should happen is never going to work until you look at your children, you understand your children, you understand weaknesses are just our strengths turned up too high, and you teach your children how to play with that dial of their strengths and weaknesses. And then you can parent because it's not like, hey, I'm just going to try to put you in this box. It's like, hey, which direction are you thinking you want to go? Okay, let's make sure that that is the best direction for you. Let's make sure that you are strong in that. And let's make sure we're really like everything we're doing, asking you to eat your vegetables and clean your room and do your homework. Let's make sure we're doing it in a way that is in alignment with you and not just the way I've decided I want to parent.
Right.
And I think even with soul scripts, where we kind of, there's room for people to be who they really are in all of the ways that they are. It's still like, Murray, you have more experience with this than I do, just because your kids are older and you've parented them for longer. But it's still like your kids will surprise you with who they really are. You might think that you know your kid and you know exactly what they would do. But then when you get down to it and you like ask them, oh, you're not doing this thing because you're I don't know, lazy, right? You're not doing it because of all of these other reasons that are a whole different piece of your personality. So I think parenting is very evolutionary in that way,
Yes.
and that you can never really like nail people the way that you think they are who they are. Wow, talking in circles now.
I think that's one of the
um,
reasons why we wanted to create this, and because we made the test
mhm.
ourselves. We're like, hey, we're scrapping all the other tests and we're starting over. And we actually had some of my kids and their friends come over and take the test. So I had them take another personality test, and they all ended up as healers, which I did not know that they were going to be. And it was like they got so lost in the other tests we were taking that like they were like, I don't know, I'm just guessing. So then we had them take our test, and they were like, oh, okay, now I know what I'm talking about. Okay, here's this. They all still did surprise me. I had pegged a lot of them as things that they were not. And one of the things that we talk about that comes from meshing a lot of the different personality stuff together is motivation. And
Mm.
so it comes down to like, hey, I'm looking at this outward appearance, and like you're not doing well on your homework. I'm assuming it's because you're lazy. You're telling me it's because you have anxiety. And I didn't even know you had that. And so we wanted to make
Right.
sure that we had some place that covered like a ton of different situations, and that they could come and tell us it through taking the test, like, hey, this is who I am, and this is where I'm leading from in this area, this is where I'm leading from in this area. And I think that's what we really liked most about meshing this all together, is that like a lot of parents will say, oh, tell me what my kid is, they do this and this, and I always say, can you just let
Take
them you like
the
let's take the
Right.
test and let
Like,
them
actually, your kid is everything. They
yeah.
just lead from certain places and certain areas.
And
Yeah.
that's what I really loved about this. Is like when I took the test and I was trying to find my results and I couldn't find it, but I was at Oracle, right? And because I like the details and all that, and I really want you guys to go into details of like what each four are. And then I realized there's times that the warrior showed up, and there's times that my visionary did not show up a lot during parenting, but my visionary shows up a lot in the work that I do, though, and that was so
Right.
crazy because you guys did point out like we're all four. And it's kind of like, I've studied under Tony Robbins a lot. And he's like, we all have these different personalities that show up in us and when they show up. And that's so true. And it's interesting because when I took the test, I'm like, wow, okay, so who is leading the coach? And then when I'm the mom, who's leading the mom? And when I'm the wife, like who's leading the wife, right? When I'm the friend, who's leading the friend? And it's so interesting when you really understand the four different categories, if you would, or titles, like you really start to figure out who you are. And now it's like every time I like butt heads with my daughter, and I'm like, oh, it's because she's the visionary. She is like being the visionary. Like she needs
Right.
everything out. She needs to see everything. And here I am. I'm like, raining on her parade by telling her, no, 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 put it in a box. Like if you want it, take it out later. And and I'm like wondering, like,
But
why?
that's not how her brain works, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And she's so frustrated. And she's just like, you just don't get me. And I'm like, well, no, you don't get me. Like these are the rules.
Which is both true. Like you both don't feel seen because you're both so different in that specific way.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about these four amazing categories. So I'll let you guys figure out like, which ones are which, but you guys got the floor now.
Okay, I feel like we always start with visionaries just because Marie and I both lead that way very naturally.
They should come first. We
so-
just have decided.
Right, they're just our favorite because that's us mostly. So the visionary script is driven by fun and adventure, would you say? Like novelty is very important to them. I should actually pull up the little list, my cheat sheet. So just some like common characteristics. You don't have to have all of these to be primary visionary, but it's like if I read this list and you're like, oh yeah, that feels like that's how I live most of my life. We talk a lot about how you have a primary script that you read from. Most people have one or maybe two that they read from the most often, where they're most comfortable in. So that's just a little aside. So visionaries are optimistic, spontaneous, lively, positive, very forgiving, charismatic, adventurous. And then the less fun side of us, naive, impulsive, undisciplined, obnoxious. They interrupt a lot. They're inconsistent, uncommitted, and disorganized. Woohoo! Sounds like everyone wants to be a visionary, right?
Well, I love that, like, there is both sides, right? Like, there's always that part of us that's the gift in us. And Marie, you had said this to me, and I'm gonna, when you talk about our weaknesses, and can you just say that real quick because you taught me this a while ago.
Yeah, so it's Debbie Ford. She wrote a book called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And her main concept is that all of our weaknesses are just our strengths turned up too high. And if you don't have control of the dial, that weakness will control you. When you see it and you're like, hey, I see this blaring weakness in front of me, you have the opportunity to then get control of that dial and turn it into a strength.
Right. And so what's interesting, Brittany, when you're reading, like you said, the downsides, I'm like, wait a second, that's just
Right.
our like weaknesses.
It's
like
just the other side of the same coin.
Right.
And this is actually super helpful with other people, right? I do this with my kids all the time. Anytime I'm frustrated with the way that they are being, right? The way that they're showing up, I remind myself, wait, this is the other side of the things I love the most about you, right? The fun, carefree nature that you have that I really appreciate in my life and in our family dynamic and culture, that comes with the disorganization, right? And you can't have one without the other. They're just connected, and you have to deal with the negative side if you want the positive side.
Right, right.
Do you have anything else you want to say about visionaries, right?
Visionaries are going to be the life of the party. They're going to be the most dramatic. So they're the ones who love life the most. But when they're having a bad day, they're also going to be equally as dramatic about the bad things as they are happy about the good things. And I think people forget that. I think people expect visionaries to just be happy-go-lucky all the time. And when a visionary breaks down, it's like, life is over.
And I would say, I wouldn't necessarily say they have the highest highs and lowest lows, but they are definitely the most expressive of them. So where a healer might feel a lower low, the visionary's low is going to look lower to an outsider, right? Because they're just showing you all of their feelings.
Yeah. And I'm going to just chime in because that is so my daughter. It's like, you would think the world has ended, like even this morning I was taking them to school and I had the puppy because I was getting the puppy groomed right after. And she said, well, I'll hold the puppy for the first 15 minutes and Sam, you can have the puppy for the second 15 minutes. And so we're in the car line. And of course, she wants to hold the puppy now because she's at school and she wants all her friends to see her puppy.
Totally. Very visionary to want people to see you doing the thing. Yeah.
Right. And so she's like trying to get the puppy. And I'm like, okay, my puppy's 2 pounds. Okay. First of all, like it's a toy, mini Aussie doodle. And I'm like, could you please not tear the puppy apart? Like, seriously, like it's his time. She melted down like, oh, I just wanted to have the puppy. And I'm like, are we really doing this in the car line? Like, I'm thinking like everybody can hear us because she's over dramatic because I just asked her to stop pulling the puppy out of his arms.
Right.
So I was like, oh my God. So what you just described, I'm like, oh yeah, I just went through this morning. Like the whole world just fell out of the bottom, right? Like, because I told her to stop pulling the puppy and she just was not going to have it. And I was like, okay, well, I really hope you get to turn your day around. Make good choices. Love you. Bye.
Right. Bye. I know, because to them, that is like whatever is happening in the moment is the most important thing to a visionary, right? They don't live in the future, which means they don't have anxiety. So that's good. They don't live in the past, so they don't usually deal with depression. They are very in the moment, but that means that whatever is happening right now, I want to hold the puppy is the most important thing and nothing else matters.
Totally. So that's a visionary, everybody.
Yeah, it's really fun. Okay, let's do healer. I don't know, Marie, I don't want to hog the time. If you
please
ever want to chime in, please do.
This is why I love these guys, okay? This is why I love them.
Healers primarily are driven by connection and relationships. So if you think of your most loyal friend, they probably lead healer a lot. Just the little characteristics are compassionate, sincere, loyal, thoughtful, committed, emotional, dependable, respectful, and nurturing. And I really like that we put emotional on the strengths side of this list, because a lot of times we feel like emotional people is not a good thing, but we really think that is a strength. Anyways, some more negative things are perfectionist, guilt-prone, judgmental, worrier, self-righteous, self-critical, unforgiving, jealous, and slow to change or decide. That's a lot, right?
So on the plus side, they're going to be the best gift givers, right? They are going to feel, because that gift is a connection. It's like, I hear you, I see you, I've been listening to everything you said. I know that like 3 weeks ago, you randomly commented that you love this candy, and now it's going to be a gift. Like they're just so thoughtful in that area. On the negative side, they're going to be like, I guess I see this as a negative. It's not necessarily, but their ships turn slower. And so if you're,
Right.
need to change course, it's like you're going to have to give the healers some serious amounts of time to change course. Case in point, we're trying to move. It's been 1.5 years since I brought this up, and my husband's still, just barely
Dragging
changed
feet.
yeah, and still every once in a while has a panic attack. And it's mostly just because of the change and the what ifs and the unknowns. Healers really struggle with that because they just don't know if they're going to be able to feel good and safe in the new house. They don't know if they're going to be able to, for a healer man, which is a lot of people have a hard time putting the two of those together. But for a healer man, it's I don't know if I can provide for my family in the new house. I don't know if I can make sure everybody is emotionally supported. And it's
Right.
the rest of us are it's going to be fine, I promise. And it's
Right.
and it's it takes them a little
But
bit
leaving
more.
the safety bubble is hard for a healer.
Very hard for a healer. So if you have a lot of kids who are breaking down in the morning because they can't get their minds wrapped around going to school, you likely have a healer child, and they're just this is my safety bubble. I don't know how to feel safe at school. So some tools of teaching them how to take their bubble with them, even some visualizations that they are in a bubble and their safety goes with them. Their safety's not in a place. They are the safety. Little tools and tips and tricks like that will help a healer child be able to feel safe wherever they are.
Right. And, it's interesting because so the twin of my daughter he's a healer, and I can fully appreciate that because, and he gets embarrassed really easy too. Right. So, and when he gets embarrassed, he gets upset, and he's emotional. And I think that people have a hard time with boys or men being healers because you say the emotions.
Totally.
But when I hear emotions in the healer, what I hear is that they're very in tune with their emotions. They are very in tune with what they're feeling and how they're feeling in that moment.
And the hard thing is if you have a healer who has been disincentivized to connect with themselves, then they cut off that piece of them. Right? Or repress it and say feelings are bad. This happens a lot with men and boys because they're socialized to not feel feelings.
Right.
So you can have,
just with that, because one of the things that I've always coached the parents I work with is allow your kids to feel what they feel in that moment. Don't wrong the crying, don't wrong the anger, don't wrong the sadness, just you're not going to wrong if they're happy. Right.
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 And so we have always allowed our kids, we always say, your room is your safe space. You can go be mad in your room. You can go be sad in your room. You can go be happy in your room. You can go be confused in your room. Your room is your safe haven. And to this day, my healer son, he will always go to his room when he's having that emotion. I don't even have to say, okay, you're entitled to feel this in your room. He just automatically goes. And we actually did this journal where he wrote down what made him angry, what would he rather feel, and what did he do to feel happy or whatever he wanted. And what he always put, what made him feel better, was in my room, because that's his safety bubble. That's because we've allowed him to have that. We've never shamed him for his emotions. We never said, you know what, you need to dry up those tears or suck it up or that's enough of that. Now, when they're little and we're teaching them the transition from crying from what you want versus using your words for what you want, we would say crying's all done. Crying is all done. Use your words. So that we kind of probably suppress the crying. And when a child is feeling that emotion of crying because they're embarrassed they fell outside in front of their friends or they, scrape their knee or whatever, allow them to feel that. And with my healer son, it is so important we do. And we don't put a time limit on it. We allow him to feel however long it takes. And it's almost a ritual now with him. Like when he gets upset, we're like, oh, we can hear the stairs. We know where he's going. And then he comes out. And then even with my Mother's Day card, he wrote it was interesting because I always think my daughter's going to write that beautiful message of appreciation, but it's not. The visionary's not like that. He is though. He's like, and I just want to appreciate how hard you work for us, Mom. And I'm like, oh God, he's so sweet. I'm not guilty for always working. See, he realizes that.
And that's how a healer can make you feel, right? Like, oh, you see me and you appreciate me and you know me and you love me. Like that is from a healer every time. Or at least that person's healer piece, right?
So Maria, appreciate your husband because you probably feel seen and heard by him. Healer man. There was a concept that you guys talked about though, and I believe you called it the broken healer maybe? The wounded healer. Can you, because that was an aha moment for me. Can you explain a little bit about what does it mean to be the wounded healer?
Yeah, Brittany, take it away.
Okay. I would say that I will start by prefacing that anger is a secondary emotion, right? And healers, I think, feel the deepest just because relationships and connection are so important to them. That's like their primary reason for living. So when they have been hurt in their primary motivation, right? When they have a hurt relationship or a hurt connection, they will, their sadness can be, not every time, not everyone, but covered by anger, which is very defensive mechanism, right? Obviously. And they can read from the warrior script to kind of protect themselves and their feelings. So if you take the quiz and you come out as a healer and you're like, I did not think that I was a healer. Or if you're listening and you think of someone in your head, in your family or in your friend group, you're like, oh, I thought they were a warrior because they show up really bold, brazen, strong, independent,
ready to burn the world
down. Facade,
down.
Right? That is a shield and sword in hand to protect their little teddy bear healer heart.
I totally see that. And I see that in him too. And I feel like, and it's so funny you said that, anger is a second emotion because that's what I tell everybody. I said, anger is not the first thing that they feel. Anger is the release of what they really are feeling. And that's the only way they know how.
Or the cover up, right?
Right. To get it out, or because they don't want to be vulnerable, right? Because vulnerable people have this idea that if you're vulnerable, that you get hurt. So it's like, I'm not going to get hurt. So I'm going to come out as
Which
anger.
is true sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
that's not
totally
from nowhere.
It totally
Being
is.
vulnerable sucks.
It does sometimes. And sometimes it's our biggest gift and our biggest strength to be vulnerable and because we want to connect. And that's the thing about the healer though. They love connection. They get connection through emotions. And
they need it.
And it's kind of like, oh gosh, do I get to be vulnerable today? Or am I going to get hurt? Or, so it's almost like they have to wear that mask of who they really are and what they're really feeling in that moment. And I see that in my son. I see that a lot. And I actually see a lot of that in my husband as well. I haven't really depicted what my husband is yet, but I would be on the fence to say that he's probably more of a healer, but he's really fun and adventurous too. He really rather do fun than anything. So,
and he might lead from both really often. And that's that's what I love so much about the soul scripts is you're not one thing. You're all four. You might have a primary one, and some people are more, their pie chart is more one way or the other.
Right. That's interesting.
Okay. There's room for it all.
So there's the healer, and then what? Wait, let's do the oracle because I'm the oracle. So
okay, oracle.
Tell me about me, Brittany.
Tell you about you. You should probably tell me about you. But your oracle piece, at least, driven by order and respect. So they like things to be just so. They believe that there is a right, I'm putting air quotes because there is no right. But oracles think that there is a right way to do things, or a right way that things should be. They're very logical, detail-oriented, very efficient, organized, tidy, mature, self-assured, observant, analytical, insightful. There's a lot of like intellectual sounding words. You don't have to identify as like a brainiac with an IQ of 150 to be an oracle. You can just, if you like systems and organization and having things the way that you like them, oracle.
That's so me. Spot on. And by the way, there is a right way, and you're doing it exactly right. So keep going.
Perfect. They can also be self-critical, too serious, stubborn. They project their expectations. So expectations that they hold for themselves, they assume that everyone else lives by those same rules. And when those rules are broken, they're like, I don't even know how to explain how an oracle feels. Just how are you being this way? This isn't the wrong way to be, right? They can be judged as cold, facts over feelings, indecisive, unenthusiastic, very black and white, and can suffer from analysis paralysis, which is one of my favorite words just because it rhymes. But if you have ever been, and this is different from fear of a better option that a visionary would suffer from, right? Which is why the motivation is so important to look at. So analysis paralysis is where the oracle is like so overwhelmed with the information in front of them that they can't make a choice because they want, and why is where all of the real truth is found, right? They can't make a choice because what are they afraid of? What do they want from this best choice? They can't be wrong.
Right.
Because of what it would look like for other people to see them, right? They want respect. And if they make a wrong choice, people might not respect them. Whereas a visionary wants the best choice because they just want the most out of whatever is on offer, right? They want just for themselves. They don't care if someone else thinks that they're dumb for their choice. They just want the best thing on the menu.
So spot on. And that is me through and through. And like it shows up in my life. And it's funny because I was telling my husband, I'm like, we've been together 11 years. Like, you still don't know this. Like, if my husband was able to be listening to this right now, which he's not because he's at work, but he'd be like, oh my God, like Brittany has nailed Venu. Like, that is so her. And I'll say to him, like, how, like, we've been together 11 years. Like, seriously? Like, you still haven't gotten this about me yet? And he's like, yeah, no, apparently not. Because again, like, I assume that everybody has the same expectations as me. And that's literally where I run into problems. Like, that's my 2 millimeter gap, is appreciating other people's expectations and getting clarity of like, what is your expectations and here's mine, so we can figure out how we can meet in the middle. Like, I just had this team meeting with one of my teams and I'm like, I feel like I'm getting frustrated because my expectations here, and I'm not sure you're at the same expectations. And they're like, your expectations is not even going to be met. I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what you're thinking, but this does not happen in a month. It takes a year. I'm like, oh, sorry about that. Okay, let me lower my expectations, but then I need details of what they should be then, right? Because
I still need markers to be met.
Right.
An oracle is all about having the boxes to be checked. How can I make sure that my to-do list, I've got a to-do list, I'm going to check it all off. It feels great. The one thing that we tell everyone, and that I really need every oracle to hear me right now, is that your worth is not connected to how much you get done on your to-do list. There are no amount of boxes to be checked that will determine your value. And I have had so many people, especially my oracle friends, as they're listening to me in our oracle podcast, they're like, oh my gosh, you have no idea the text I was literally just to my business partner. Like, I'm pretty much sure I'm worthless today because I've got nothing done. She's like, I needed to hear that. And it was like, okay, I will tell you over and over again, your worth is not connected to anything outside of you. There are no amount of markers to be met that will tell you that you are good enough, that your day is worth it. because you're worth it as is. And they're like, I don't believe you, but I'm going to just trust that you're right. I'm like, I promise you.
That is
it's true.
so key. And like, that has been my learning. That has been my learning about, because I grew up with no self-worth and self-esteem. Like, it's been a long journey, a long journey. And I can just honestly say it's only been within the last couple years, but really probably in the last 6 months that I can fully appreciate my worth. And it's internally. It has nothing to do with who
Right.
I serve, how many clients, did I do this? Was I successful in that? It was, I had to learn how to let go of that. And I'm still an oracle, and so I'm here to tell all of our listeners and on your podcast is that it is possible. It takes training, it takes understanding, and it is possible. It is possible to separate that. And that sometimes we just have to tune in to the other part of our characteristics that we do have,
For
and
real.
and I'm going to be honest, like for the longest time, everybody said, Vinu, life is not that serious. And I'm like, I'm not serious. And I could never understand why they said that. And I just got back from, speaking in Vegas, and a few of the participants actually came up and they said, oh my gosh, you're so funny. And I'm like, wait, can you say that one more time? And they're like, you're so
stop, but please
funny. I really had to hear that,
Mm-hmm.
I really needed to hear that. I really needed to hear that authentically. I didn't have to try. I didn't have to check off a box to say, oh, okay, boom, 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 I'm funny now. I was just being me, and people found that it was fun. But I let go of all the checking the boxes.
Yeah, and no matter what your primary script is or which script you lead from the most often, people's core needs are the same, right? We need to feel seen and heard and unconditionally accepted.
100%.
And that's true for all of us at all times.
100%.
And the other thing that's true about all of us at all times is we have to stop shooting all over ourselves.
Oh,
like, we cannot
this is
say,
my favorite.
I should be this. I should have done this. My kids should be happy. That means I'm not a good mom. Like, your kids are going to have bad days. Your kids are going to be snots at times. They're going to have moments of breakdowns. Because they're human. And so I love, there's one quote that says, we cannot expect our children to achieve a level we ourselves have not met.
I love that.
We still have bad days. We still are sad sometimes. We still overreact. We still are snotty at times. Like, sometimes I'm driving and I'm yelling at all the other drivers because they're not following my rules.
Right.
My kids see
when I
that.
honk my horn, my kids are like, what happened? What did they do? I was like, they're
was this
idiot.
dangerous?
Blah, blah, blah. It's like,
They didn't get my memo on how I need to drive today. They need to get my memo before they get on this road.
Yeah. And so we get to offer our children the same grace that we also get to offer ourselves.
Right.
And that is that everybody has moments of breakdown, and those can lead to, continual breakdowns or breakthroughs, depending on what we're willing to learn from. And what, like I tell people, what you do when your kids are having a breakdown is listen to what they're really saying, because somewhere in there they're telling you what they actually need. And
Right.
if you listen to that instead of like, I need cereal, it's like, okay, but what's really going on? When you can listen to what actually is going on and meet them there, the breakdowns stop and the connection reignites, and they feel safe and they feel seen and they feel heard. Any of these scripts, one of the things we talk about a lot too, is any of these scripts, when they're not feeling safe to be them, they will be like up to 100 of their bad parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anytime a visionary is not feeling safe in their script, they're going to be extra bouncy and out of control and obnoxious. When a healer is not feeling met and seen, they're going to feel extra clingy and extra emotional.
Mm-hmm.
When an oracle is not feeling met and they're feeling safe to be them, they're going to be extra cold and analytical and come across
standoffish, like just
no thank you, right? And so if you can meet your kid and make them feel safe in who they are, if you're like, I can't handle that they're being like this, instead of trying to change who they are, meet them where they're at, and they will naturally just simmer on down, and the best parts of them will return.
And that is so key. And I just there's a couple of things I want to touch on that you said is, breakdown or breakthrough. Every breakdown can be a breakthrough. You know, what we try to do is we try to go around it. The kids having a meltdown at Walmart, and instead of hearing them, because kids are going to give you their formula. If we are present with what is happening in that moment, and we're not like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, or having this meltdown in Walmart, what do? Oh, give them the lollipop. Okay, because that's going around the problem. That's not growing through the problem. Figure out what is so uncomfortable. Are they overstimulated with everybody? You know, is it too cold for them? Like, what is really going on with them that every time you get into Walmart, they're having a breakdown, they're having a meltdown? If you've got to be present with them. And the best way to do, and I even spoke about this on your guys' podcast, and I spoke about a couple episodes ago, is be curious, not critical. Ask them, what is it that you need? You know, I want to support you. And it is so interesting because as you're speaking about that, like, I'm now thinking like, oh my God, that's why she's so hyper. Because when I am like shut down and I'm like zoned in what I need to do, I can hear her like outside. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, holy cow. But it's in that moment because she's not being seen. So she's going to figure out how to get that done as the visionary. And then my son, as soon as I'm like done, it's like he's clung to my leg and I'm like, okay, oh, okay. Like, what is it? Like, and this was just an aha moment for me, Marie, because I'm like really starting to see like, wow, like, wow, even for me, is that like,
right.
while I'm
and
like,
I think I love that every breakdown can be a breakthrough, but also their breakdown can be your breakthrough.
oh,
I have seen this in my own self in parenting in the last like few months of when my kids they're young, they're almost 6 and 4. And so when they have like meltdowns, they're the typical like toddler situation, right? And when I get frustrated at that, I think, what do I need? Why am I upset at this moment? Because when you are like triggered or frustrated, you can't show up for your kids the way that they need you to show up. So it's been really illustrative, I guess, for me to say, okay, why am I frustrated right now? Oh, it's because whatever it is, like I'm trying to get ready for school. I'm a pretty warrior parent of like get things done and move on. Especially in like the morning when you do have to get out of the door, right? I rely on my warrior to get that done. Especially with a visionary child who once had a bag of rubber bands. Literally, we all have our shoes on, we're about to leave, and he just throws it up and goes, rubber band party. And I was like, oh my gosh. I got very upset, obviously. And he goes, I'm sorry, Mom, I just wanted to have fun. And that was like, of course you did. Like, you pure visionary soul who just wanted to have fun. That's all you ever want in life. And I like can't be mad at you anymore for your number one desire. Like,
what a breakthrough moment though, right? Like that is such a breakthrough moment for you as the parent to like, because we don't want to take away from the gift of who they are. And your child is the visionary. That's his gift of being the visionary. He brings the fun into your life. Like that's his job right now. And like, I love that their breakdown can be your breakthrough. And so the people that are listening, all the parents out there that are listening, like one thing that you can do in order to have this is ask yourself when you are triggered. I was just coaching one of my clients today about this. Like when you're triggered from your kid, ask yourself, if I was them, what would I need right now? If I was them, what do I need right now? And
the answer is never a yelling parent.
No, that's not what they need. They do not need that. No. And the other thing is like, you can ask yourself, what am I making this mean about myself right now? Because most of us parents,
that's super powerful,
especially out in public, when our kids are acting out, like my daughter about the puppy this morning. And I'm like, oh gosh, like I'm the parent-child whisperer. Everybody knows this. And here's my kid having a meltdown. Oh my goodness. All of a sudden I was making it about me. I made it totally about me. She obviously did not feel seen and heard in that moment in her visionary personality, because all she wanted to do was hold the puppy up so all her people can see her. She had the puppy, right?
Which would it have been the worst thing to let her do?
No,
maybe not.
Now I feel bad. Okay. But this is my breakthrough in this moment, right? Because I'm learning, like, what did I make it mean about me?
Right.
I made it mean like, oh gosh, I don't have my own kids under control. And like, if she doesn't have her kids
no one's going to trust me.
Correct. Yeah. And so
and I think that's one of my favorite things. Like when I teach people, like, I'm like, you know, I started as like a we would have parent nights where people would come over and I would go through some of this information. And the biggest thing I told them first, straight off the bat, is like, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert because I don't know, ask me when my kids are 30 and 40. Like, I don't know how it's going to turn out. None of us do. It's like building a ship, letting it sail, and then after it sails, trying to change course. You don't know what it's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what, like, none of us are going to ever be able to escape having zero breakdowns with our children.
Right.
Ever. Like, that's, if your goal as a parent is like, okay, I'm watching Venu right now because my goal as a parent is to make sure we never have a bad day. It's never going to work.
No.
That's not human life.
Pipe dream.
Like,
yeah.
That is, yeah. If that's your goal, you're probably a healer because they love peacemakers, but it's just unrealistic because we're all still in this earth to learn. Our trials are our growth opportunities. And so being able to, again, the biggest powerful thing is, like you're doing right now, stopping later that day. Like, sometimes it's like, okay, today it's just gonna, like, I can't solve this right now. The power is in a little bit later, sitting back, self-reflecting, walking through your own thoughts and going, oh, I was thinking this, and this. That's really interesting. Healing that piece of you. And then the next time, like, a lot of times the breakdowns happen less, but also you catch yourself quicker.
Yeah.
You go, oh, I'm starting to feel that pain in my stomach that's showing me that I'm in a power struggle. Okay, what do I need to do in this moment to step out of that power struggle? And you learn a little bit more each time through each thing. And it's still, like, life is still going to throw you new learning experiences. And
so much.
There should be no guilt in parenting. If there is a guilt in parenting, that's just a moment for you to sit and beat yourself up and keep, like, spiraling downward. Instead, you go to what the lesson is and you look for the light. And what is the lesson in this moment? Guilt is going to take you to darkness. Learning is like, okay, I had this moment that sucked, and our kids are resilient. And when you go back and you say, hey, earlier this morning you were fighting. I'm sorry that I got upset. What could we do next time to prevent that? If you are feeling frustrated, what could you have said? Breaking down all those moments and finding the light in it and the connection in it, that's where the power is. Because if, if you just, both of you said, oh, he threw a rubber band party, now I'm pissed, and she wanted, like,
that's what I did.
Puppy, and now I'm super angry, and you just stayed there, though, and you said, okay, now I'm kind of a bad mom because I yelled at him, and now I'm a bad mom because of this. You would just be beating yourself up. It does make you a better person. Looking
well, and then it's just going to happen again next time, right? Unless you like debrief the situation, understand the stories that you're telling yourself, apologize to your child because you like hurt them, obviously. There's so much more power in the apology than in the mistake.
Never let.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because I always tell the parents that I coach is that, what is your guilt really giving you? It's self-beating because, it's like you got spanked as a kid. So, okay, I knew that was wrong, so I'm not going to do it again. But then you do it again and you get spanked again. It's, what are you really learning? Like, what is the guilt here to teach you? It's, you think that you have that much control that you're going to manage their emotion. The only control you have is managing your own emotion. And if you're going to do it better next time, reflect on it instead of beat yourself on it, right? It's like, be a self-builder, not a self-beater, because we need to also reflect this and role model this to our kids. And like you said, Brittany, the powerful thing is an apology, because if they see us apologizing to them and taking ownership, that's what we need to teach them, is that ownership. And on a side note, I have a 28 and 23-year-old, and I do know what it looks like. And I wish I had this in the beginning. And no, I cannot go back and fix it. And I can appreciate the different personalities I see in them now. And I can appreciate giving myself grace for not knowing what I didn't know and doing the best that I could with what I had. And now God gave me a do-over. Thank you, God, for the do-over. And I'm doing it better.
It's never too late. It's never too late. My mom is like 70 something. We're all grown people. And she keeps coming back and saying, you know what? I just realized when you were a kid, maybe this hurt you. Are you okay? And we're like, it heals our soul. And so it's just never too late. You do your best. And when you know better, you do better. And it's just never too late to go back and connect.
I agree. So we have about 15 more minutes. So we need to get to the warrior. Like, let's tap into that warrior.
Okay. The warrior is driven by result and productivity. So they are your goers, they're your doers, they're your get stuff done kind of people. When I unload the dishwasher, I yank out the warrior so it can be over as fast as possible. They are decisive, assertive, determined, responsible, pragmatic, independent, disciplined, and confident. You can all probably just picture someone in your life that is those things. They can be judged for being insensitive, arrogant, impatient, intimidating, bossy, demanding, aggressive, and selfish. And if you couldn't picture someone before, I bet you can now, because sometimes
go ahead.
that side is easier. Yeah, go ahead.
I really thought, like, because I'm the warrior too, definitely. And then I had to listen to the down, and I'm like, which one do I like better? Oh, I like the Oracle. So I think I'm going to go with the Oracle because that's more easy for me. But I'm going to tell you, like, I feel like that's both. Like I lead from both. And Brittany, you said something earlier. It's like in the morning, my warrior's totally in charge. It's when
if you have stuff you have to get done.
Yes,
your warrior comes to the front, no matter your type.
Oh, the warrior comes out anytime there's time involved. My warrior is like, boom.
Oh, let's go.
Yep. And I do not have any mercy for the visionary, the healer, the oracle. Like there's no mercy. We have got to be in that car right now. And I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm going and I'm starting the car. And if you're not in there, I'm leaving.
Yeah. If I have to drag you kicking and screaming, that's what it will take.
Yeah,
totally.
The thing I love most about warriors is we always say that they are the ones who are so results driven that they are going to either like change the world or take us all down trying. Like you will know when a warrior has walked in because it's like you feel the passion, the fire, the heat. You're just like, okay, they're here. And it's like they always say they're either going to be the lead, like a CEO of a company, or they're going to be like the CEO of like a chain gang in the prison, right? So it's like they don't care which results they're getting half the time. They're like, I don't care. I just need to see something happening. So when you have a warrior child and you notice like you're going to have the most power struggles with them, you're going to feel the most like they're going to hear you're too much all the time. So you need to give them more choices. What should we have for dinner? Legos are a huge, like, great thing for warriors because they love to see results of what they create. Look, you had a pile of Legos, and now you created a tower. Look, you did that. They're just going to have to go. And so you have to create a safe space for them to be able to do that. But if they don't feel like they're like getting enough results, they're just gonna make the house feel like complete turmoil. And you'll notice, you'll be like, oh gosh, they're not feeling in alignment. How can we get them more like feeling more in control, more like they have a say in things? That's a huge piece for warriors.
Yeah, choice and control are so important to them, especially if they feel like they don't have any. So if you have a very authoritative parent who is in control of everything and like, you know the parent style I'm talking about.
Oh, don't stand over there. Oh, wait, come back here. Wait, you should be right here. Like you
or like my way or the highway.
Talking, and they're like, the kid's like, I can't even move. You're constantly telling me what to do. Right? That warrior kid is gonna lose it.
Yeah, they will fight you. They will fight you.
So we have a few minutes left. So what I feel might support the listeners is let's go back and maybe let's start with a visionary. So if you have a visionary child, like first of all, is this the test that kids can take too? Like what would you say
for sure
what your kid is?
I would say like somewhere 10 and up, they could for sure take it. It's got a few situational things that they're like, I don't know, I've never had to go to dinner with my friends. So, but a lot of them, my teenagers and up have taken it and really liked it. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they were like way over their head. And
you could probably adapt some of those questions for your younger kids.
It'd be hard to
It's only 10 questions. It's really not a big undertaking.
So let's go back. So with the visionary child, right? If your visionary child's, let's say their weaknesses or their strengths are dialed up too high, right? Um, what are some strategies for the parent? What are the strategies for to support your visionary?
So again, one with their room is everything they own, they are going to want to see. And so they're going to have everything out. So the best thing with a visionary is to weed out what they own, and so that they can leave it wherever they want to. They're going to want to see it. They're probably going to be your shoeless child, sometimes your naked child. They're the kinds that like clothes are just too restricting. That's too much work, or like that's one more step I can't take.
100%.
So with getting ready for school in the morning, one of my best tactics with them is saying, if you get this done faster, then we have 15 minutes. You can do whatever you want. So you really like top load what they have to get done, so that in the back end they have time to throw a rubber band party, right? But instead of like giving them 15 minutes to get ready, you give them 5 minutes to get ready and 10 minutes to party.
I love it.
That's kind of a great trick for visionaries. Brittany, can you think of any other visionary tips?
Just the things that you will have to help a visionary learn, right? Let's just talk about organizing and cleaning your room. They will use all of the space that you give them. So if, because I guess I know. So if you want to help them learn to manage their things, giving them parameters of like, here's the place where we hang your art from school. And there's room for 5 things. You can't keep literally every piece of art that you ever make. Literally, not even famous artists do that, right? So here's how much room you have. When you get a new piece home, you choose which one to trade it out. That is great. But also remember that they will want to see it all. So the like super organized drawers where everything is a place for everything and everything in its place, not how Visionary operates, but they still know all of their stuff. Right? They'll be able to say like, oh, my blue car or this pair of shorts or whatever. Like they know all of their stuff. It's organized chaos for them.
Right.
And that is okay.
Yes. And I'm trying to accept that, by the way.
It's hard.
So, we have about 2 minutes. So what about the healer? So what are some tips that you can give parents if they have a healer child?
They just need connection. And again, true for all of us, right? Especially parent-child dynamic, but just connect with them and accept them. Is what I would
give
say.
them the language to be able to say what they're feeling, and
for sure.
to be able to like give them a scale, so that not everything like a 10 out of 10. Like these are the things that are normal to be this sad about. Let's talk about, and give them a scale of how they should be like. What we eat for breakfast. And if you're sad about breakfast, that's not a 10. That's not something to cry about. Like this is just a 1, something, and so giving them kind of the tips and tools to understand how to express what they're feeling, how to notice what they're feeling. And it's super, super helpful.
Yeah. And I would just add to that and allow them to have a safe space. Like what's their safety, and because I know that's really helped my son. It's just, his room is a safety and he knows he can go there and he doesn't need permission, and he feels safe there. So that really helps him process what he's going through. So and I would just add that. Okay. The warrior, like, I know you touched on some of that, but can you give some more tips?
Yeah, they need challenge. They love challenge. And so if there are things that you want them to do that they're not doing, for a visionary, you would make it fun and make it a game. For a warrior, you make it a challenge and make it like a new thing that they have to learn.
Yeah, so we were just talking to our friend the other day about her warrior son who doesn't want to potty train. And she's a healer, so she's made it like, hey, it's okay. We all have accidents. What do you want to choose? Choose wear underwear or pull-ups? And just yesterday, we're like, you know what? Like maybe it's not working because it's not a hard enough challenge for him. Maybe it's not like there's no safety net. This is what you're doing now. We're moving on.
Yep.
And she was like, oh, I don't know. So she hasn't tried it yet. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, we can't confirm or deny, but
but
maybe stop buying pull-ups and deal with the poop accidents for however long it takes and just say, hey, we're not doing this anymore. We're moving on. Like warriors actually respond. I would say it's probably 50-50 if they respond well to being pushed or if they will just push back and be stubborn, right? And that's a very case-by-case, situation-by-situation basis, but worth a shot.
And I feel like if you guys know your children and like even the babies and toddlers, if you can't figure out what their upside is right now because their characters and personalities have not gone, where it needs to go yet, you could start seeing their downsides, right? Their strengths dialed too high. You could start to see those, and honestly, that's what I did for my kids. Like when I looked at the downsides, if you would, I was like, okay, that's that child, that child. Like that's what really helped me. And then I was like, all of a sudden I started to see their strengths though, because I started to realize what type of child they are, and it helped our communication so much better. So, okay. So real quick, we're at time, but I want to go over real quick the Oracle too, if you don't mind. Like what are some tips that they can do for the Oracle?
So oracles are going to love to have a place for everything. So give them that. Also, they are going to need to hear more that no matter what they do, they are loved and protected and safe. And they might resist that. I know my daughter hated that. I was like, hey, you know that no matter what grades you get, I'm going to love you. And she was so mad because she's like, well, now I don't know how to measure. It's like, okay, but it's always there.
Now I can't measure my worth, so I must be worthless.
Right. And another thing is that like oracles love to verbally banter, and they love to verbally debate a lot. And so at first I tried to stop my kids from doing that. And then I realized they were actually having fun. It was annoying to listen to, but they're having fun. And so I would teach them things like, hey, someday you're going to be a great lawyer, but today you don't get to use those lawyer skills with me. This is it. And so they would try to like logic their way in and out of everything. And I had to give a boundary to that. Sometimes it's great to be able to, hey, but mom, I'm thinking this, and like logic your way through things. And there are times where you have to say, and that's scene, the end. And
here's the boundary.
Yeah, here's the boundary. Yeah. Great. Get a job being a CEO. You'll do amazing someday. But today, with me, this is the boundary.
Perfect. So, you guys can get more of Brittany and Marie at These Two Moms podcast. I'll put the test, I'll put it in my YouTube and my Facebook. So if you guys want to take that test, listen to their podcast. They go more deep into this. Thank you, Marie and Brittany, for being our guest. This is the end of our show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Check out on spanglishworld.ca for all news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. See you next week.